look at some of the most common bones. Again, we are not looking at an entire skeletal lecture. We are looking to go over the bones so that you have a general overview of the things that you are looking at. We're going to go over the major bones, the major components, and how they break down with medical terminology. Here is a nice view of the skeletal system. The picture on the left is an anterior view, and the picture on the right is a posterior view. Some bones you're going to be able to see in both views, and some you can really only see from one direction or the other. So let's take a look. All right, we're going to first move into the face. These are just referred to as the facial bones. That is fairly obvious, right? Things of your face. All right, first up is this term zygomato. Okay, zygomato. And that refers to the cheekbone. They almost look like a little star-shaped bone, and it's what makes up the apples of your cheeks. Okay, and they are in a nice dark green color here in this picture. Then we have the term naso. So the nasal bone is at what we would call the bridge of the nose. So if you were to pinch or where your glasses sit, okay, at the top of your nose, that is actually two bones that are fused together. They're a nice light pink here. Those are the nasal bones. Next up is the mandible or mandibulo, often just called the lower jawbone. So this nice little purple portion here. This part does move back and forth when you're speaking, chewing, right? It creates a little joint off at the side of your face. So the mandible is the name of the bone, or mandibulo is the root term. The maxilla or the maxillo is the upper jaw, and it is in yellow here. So if you look at the upper teeth, and it actually comes up and around almost to the nasal bone, just on the inside of the eye, that whole bone that is there in yellow is the maxilla, the root term, maxillo. All right, the temples. So when we think about those temples on the side of our head, it is number 4 here in this picture, kind of in this tannish, like orange color. That is the temporal bone. The root term for that, temporo. So if you hear the term temporo, it is the temporal bone on the side of the skull. All right, let's take a little peek at some of the bones of the back. And we do have a lecture on this as well. So if you want to go back and review that one, it is a piece of another lecture. But as a quick review, cervical, okay, is the term for the neck. So the bones in the neck are referred to as the cervical vertebrae. Humero. Okay, humero is coming down into the arms. So we can see we actually have two, right? From the shoulder to the elbow, okay, is the humerus bone. Okay, humero is the bone. The clavicle. This one we're really just going to see from the front side, and most of us would commonly just call this the collarbone, right? So if you think your collarbone, the official term for that is the clavicle. So we do have one on each side. Okay, these are just really visible from the front side of us. You can only see a small piece if looking from the back. Okay, your clavicle. Next up is the term sterno or the sternum. Okay, the sternum is the breastbone, so we really just see that from the anterior view. Okay, circled here. We are now going to call this the sternum. The sternum. All right, this one might not be quite as obvious, but costo, so if you see the root term costo, refers to the ribs. The ribs, of course, are what hold your thoracic cavity, okay, together. The lungs and the heart will be inside of there, but that is referred to as costo. The scapula, or scapulo for the root term, is the shoulder blade. You do have two of them. These are really best seen just from that posterior or that back side. So the official term for the shoulder blade is the scapula. Thoraco. We have seen this term before, and in fact, we've seen this many times in this particular course. So if you view many of our videos, we have talked about the chest region. So thoraco, or the thorax, refers to the chest. Okay. Thoraco can also refer to the portion of the vertebrae found in the chest region. So the thoracic vertebrae is the type of vertebrae that is attached to a rib. And see if you can think about what that rib term, root term was. And if you came up with costo, good job. But the thoracic vertebrae are those vertebrae right in the middle attached to your chest. Next up, that term lumbo, we have seen that once before as well, but the lumbo refers to the low back. So just under those thoracic vertebrae, we have 5 lumbar vertebrae. And if you were to kind of stick your hand on the small of your back or that little curve in your low back, that is your lumbar vertebrae. All right, radio. Radio refers to the radius, which is the name of the bone in your forearm, and it is the one that is a little bit more towards the thumb side. Okay, so the radius is on the thumb side of your forearm, and it runs from approximately your wrist to your elbow. Right next to it, we have a second bone. So there's actually 2 bones in your forearm, and the one that runs right next to it is the ulna. So ulna refers to that bone, the ulna. And that is the one that is more pinky side of your forearm. So on your thumb side, you have your radius. On your pinky side, you have your ulna. That's always been the best way for me to study it. So remember thumb side radius, because when we do things like pulses, right, we do a radial pulse, that is thumb side. Ulna, ulna bone, pinky side of your forearm. The term carpo refers to the wrist. There are, in fact, 8 wrist bones in each of your wrists. We're not going to name each one individually, but the term carpo or carpals, if you hear it that way, okay, refers to the bones inside of the wrist. Metacarpals. So carpals, we just learned, okay, were inside of the wrist. Meta, if you take a peek at your word list, refers to beyond. So the metacarpals are the 5 bones that are attached to each finger inside the palm portion of your hand. So you can actually feel each individual one if you hold up your palm, right? And attached to each of those is a metacarpal. Next up is the term phalange, or phalanges if you want to be plural. So we're kind of looking at the upper body still. These refer to all the bones of the fingers. Inside your 4 fingers, you have 3 per finger. If you bend, right, each of your fingers, you can see each of the 3. and in your thumb you just have 2. You're also going to see that the phalanges refer to the toes. So it is okay for fingers or toes, we just refer to them as the phalange bones. Okay, the term pelvo refers to our pelvis. It is made up of 3 bones, the ilium, the ischium, and the pubis, which you do see on your word lists. But they are pretty fused bones, meaning that they don't move or make joints like the bones at the elbow do, right? They're pretty much solid by the time you reach adulthood, but that is your pelvis bones. Moving down our leg, we next come into your femur bones, and of course you have 2. Those are your thigh bones. So from your hip to your knee, okay, is your thigh. So from your hip to your knee, the name of that bone is the femur bone. It is the largest, heaviest bone of your body, okay, and it is awfully tough when you break that one. It is the biggest bone inside the body. Moving down, we have the patello. That is the name for the kneecap, so you should have 2 of those. Okay, so the kneecaps are officially called the patella. Patella. Next up, let's move down the leg, so between the knee and the ankle. There are 2 bones there as well, just like you had 2 bones, the radius and the ulna in the forearm. You have 2 bones in your leg, so that lower portion. The first up is the tibia. Tibia. The root term here would be tibio, as shown on the screen. But the tibia is the shin bone. So if you run your hand up and down your shin bone, okay, that is the tibia. It does bear all of the weight of that lower leg, okay, when you walk. Next to it, that much smaller bone, a little bit off to the side, is the fibula, okay, the fibula, okay. The medical term for the fibula breaks down into a matchstick. Unlike the tibia, which is a really solid, heavy bone, the fibula is pretty thin. It actually looks like a matchstick. The top of it is a little bit wider, and then it gets pretty thin and narrow down through the ankle. But the fibula, okay, runs towards the outside. On down, we have the term tarso. Tarso. And you do have 7 of these bones, so I'm not going to get very particular like I did not get particular at the wrist. But if you see the term tarsals, it is these 7 bones in general that refer to the bones that make up the ankle joints or the ankle portion of your body. So tarso refers to the ankle. Okay, the metatarsals. So in the bottom of your foot, just like you had in the palm of your hand, that term meta refers to being beyond. So metatarsal means beyond the ankle. There are 5 of them that match up with the 5 toes. And you have already learned the term for the toes. Remember, it was the exact same as the fingers. So phalangio, in this case, we're just looking at the toes here.